And hello, everybody, and welcome to this special town hall, I guess we're calling this. A little bit of a different type setting here today. If you're not familiar, my name is Ryan Levesque, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today. I want to be totally candid and upfront. There's going to be nothing to buy today. Can you believe it? Something happening here at the Ask Nothing Company where there's nothing to buy. Can you believe it? There's nothing to buy. This is really just a cool opportunity for us to hang out. I just want to talk about a few things that we've been seeing, we've been thinking about quite a bit in our business, and something that I think you might find interesting and relevant, and really to kind of get your perspective on a few things as well at the same time. So, like I said, this session is going to be, it's informal. So, grab yourself a nice beverage, get something to take some good notes with, because I'm going to walk you through some models like probably accustomed to me doing over time, and have something maybe you can sketch out some stuff in your notes. I think it'll be helpful for you as we sketch out some things here together. So giving you a heads up on that. And I want to invite you to bring your attention and curiosity. So as I ask you questions and invite you to participate, I want to invite you to join in along the way as well. You're not just going to be hearing from me today. We have an amazing guest who's going to be joining us. If you're not familiar, this person is someone that is been responsible for so much of what we create here and build here and design here at the Ask Method Company. She is our director of training and education, and she's someone that, if you haven't had a chance to meet her, is one of the most delightful people in the world. She's coming from the other side of the world, the one, the only Miss Michelle Falzone. Everybody say hi to Michelle. Michelle, would you say hi?
Buddy, great to see you all today. And it is very early in the morning here. So, for any Aussies or other people tuning in from this side of the world, good morning. And for everybody else, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
Yeah. So let's do that. So quick, I just want to get a read right now, just where we are in the world, just kind of quick warm up. Let me know inside the Q&A. We are going to be using the Q&A. Chat is closed off. And the reason for that, frankly, is chat can just be a big distraction because, it just kind of becomes unwieldy. Q&A, what that means is when you go to the Q&A box in Zoom, Michelle and I can see everything that you type in. So we'll be able to read all your questions and your answers to everything. But it just eliminates the distraction of a crazy person trying to, promote their Bitcoin offer or something like that and just be really distracting. So I'd love to invite you to head on over to Q&A. Let us know where you are in the world. I'm in the northeast of the United States right now. Michelle is in Australia. Pierre's in Puerto Rico. Hey, Pierre, Sonia, what's going on? Los Angeles, Gene. Hey, Gene from Wisconsin. Yeah, nice new furry face. Yeah, although my wife does not appreciate it. So there's that. LA, Minnesota, Dr. Tanya from, I think that's Germany, the flag. Hi from Budapest, Hungary, great. So Virginia, USA. Hey, Dan, Hollywood, great to see you, my friend. Elizabeth in Montreal, Canada. Hey, Denise, great to see you here in Jalisco, Guadalajara, Mexico. Svetlana, yes, Florida. Michael, hey, Michael, how you doing? In Lisbon, Portugal. Hey, Nicole in Calgary, Austria, Clemens, Dr. Ernesta. Ali in Portugal. We've got S.H. Ben Asher in Israel, Sue in Denver, Deb. So we got a really cool global crowd here today, and very, very excited for what we're going to be talking about. So we're talking about this concept. So the title of this town hall is the hybrid program revolution. And we're going to be talking about what we mean by hybrid program, what this means, what the opportunity is, where we're seeing kind of the direction of the world heading, certainly with the clients and students that we serve and that we work with. And at the same time, I'd love to kind of get your read on a few things as well. So first thing I'd love to do is I'd love to just kind of take the temperature of us here in the room and get a sense of who we have here in terms of how you describe yourself, how you think of yourself. So this session here is really going to be geared to those of us who have some form of expertise, some form of knowledge or information that we convey, that we share as a way of doing business. So, for example, are you a coach? Are you a consultant? Are you a course creator? Are you a speaker? Are you an author? Are you a trainer? I'd love, just inside the Q&A, just let me know, like, if there was one noun to describe what you consider yourself, which is it? Is it course creator? Is it consultant? Is it coach? Is it trainer, educator, speaker, author? Or is it like a hybrid? Are you kind of like a hybrid expert, so to speak, for lack of a better term, where you kind of do a mix of a bunch of different things? Like you maybe do some coaching, a little bit of teaching. Maybe you've got a book, you're an author, you do some speaking. Like if you're a hybrid, let me know inside the comments. And Michelle, I'll invite you maybe just to look at the Q&A and see kind of what the mix is, and maybe read off a few answers that we've gotten here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting mix. And I'm loving some of the language too, which we're paying attention to about how people name themselves. So Robert, public speaking phobia coach. We've got a lot of people who refer to themselves as a coach. Eric says, I am a creator, which is such an interesting perspective. We've got people identifying the niche they're in, leadership coaches, advisor, coach, consultant, lawyer, speaker, retailer. Joy, I think we have a hybrid expert there. Consultant, coach, author coach, coach consultant, diversified creator. Then we're seeing a few hybrids, hybrid. I would say that we've got a lot of coaches in various, iterations there. We've got business growth specialist, which is a mix of all of these things, is what Philippe is saying, a mix of that kind of coach, consultant, and all of those things as he helps people grow a business.
Yeah.
Monica used to be a school teacher and is learning to be a course creator. And we've got a few course creators in here. We've got therapists and authors, Ryan,
Right.
and software experts as well. And quite a few resonating with that idea of being a mix.
So for those of you who have your cameras turned on, I want to invite you to turn your camera on, like I have my camera on here. I promise you don't have to have your hair and makeup done. I don't have mine done. Clearly tell right now. But I'd love to know, show of hands, like who feels like it's hard to like put yourself in any one of those boxes? Like it's hard to I don't really fit in a box. Like I'm not really in any one of those boxes. Yeah, I kind of feel, I've always felt that same way. Like, it's like, yeah, on some days I'm an author. I've written a couple books, but I don't really consider myself an author as like the be all end all of what I do. I've certainly done a lot of consulting in my day. I don't really consider myself a consultant. I guess I'm a business owner. I guess I'm a CEO, entrepreneur, but it's like, it's hard to like really have a label that I identify with, because it really is, it's contextual. And the reality is like what I've always felt for me personally, and a lot of, students of mine, is that we kind of are a mix, like we're a hybrid, like, and everyone's situation is a little bit different, right? Like you might do, a lot of speaking, a little bit of teaching, or you might do a lot of coaching and a little bit of, other stuff, or you might be primarily an author and do a little bit of, coaching or consulting. So we all kind of have like different dials that we turn up and down in this way. So that's really helpful. So what I want to talk about here today, and I'll be asking questions along the way, is this idea of a hybrid program. What does that mean exactly? How is it different from some of the other kind of like options that you might be considering or have considered or used or currently using in your business to transform your income into your expertise into income, to transform that knowledge that you have into really the IP, the intellectual property of your business, and a rubric, a framework that you'll be able to walk away and take away from today's session, that you'll be able to design what that hybrid program potentially could look like for yourself, and knowing that your goals and your skills are unique. Like what works for you is going to be different from anybody else, right? Because like you probably have unique skills and unique aspirations and goals that you have in your life, and so you're going to see how this model is really flexible and also something that you can take away along the way. What I want to encourage you to do in the Q&A, this is going to be helpful for us, it's also going to be helpful for you, is as and when you have like a nugget, an insight, a takeaway, something that's like valuable to you, I want to invite you inside the Q&A, use #nugget and just let us know what it is. And we'll check in periodically and share some of those nuggets. So if you're like, oh, this is a, #nugget, like a gold nugget, a nugget of information, #nugget, this XYZ concept, or this little tip, or this example, or this little thing along the way. It's going to help you kind of catalog the insights that you learn over the next little while together. And it's also going to help us, frankly, understand what areas that we should spend more time talking about, what areas are really landing, and then which areas that maybe we need to clarify a little bit more. And then as and when you have a question along the way, I want to invite you to use #question. And you can do that free form. And Michelle is going to be keeping a close eye on the Q&A box. I'll take a look at the Q&A box as well. So if we say something like, oh, that doesn't make sense, like let us know. Like if you're stuck on something, or it's like a concept that is confusing, like let us know and we'll try to cover what that is. Make sense? Sound good? Yeah? Okay, awesome. So I want to first, before we talk about the hybrid program, I want to talk about a few sort of bigger picture concepts that are going to get us to this hybrid program, this idea of the hybrid program revolution. So with that in mind, if you bear with me 1 second, I'm going to share my screen on my iPad, and hopefully it'll pull up. Good. You guys see that? It says leverage curve. See that?
Looks
Okay,
good, Ryan.
beautiful. So the first concept I want to introduce here is this idea of what we call the leverage curve. Now, this is in relationship to being an expert and the level of leverage that you have in your business. What do I mean by that? When I say leverage, I'm not talking about like money leverage, like debt or credit. I'm talking about leverage with your time, leverage with your skill, leverage with your expertise, and the amount of leverage that you have. Now, I think for many of us, I don't want to project this on all of us, but I can say for myself as someone who uses knowledge and expertise as a way to generate income in my business. There's this idea that I want to reach more people. I want to have, of course, grow income. We all want to, have a certain level of income. But even more importantly, it's to grow impact, right? To reach more people. And there's sort of this curve that we all go through as experts, for lack of a better term, in that journey. And so on the far left-hand side, we have, a situation where we have no leverage. On the far right-hand side, we have a situation where we have full leverage. What does that mean? Well, when you are working with clients on a one-to-one basis on the delivery side of what you're doing, and you are working with people on a one-on-one basis to enroll people into your program, and it's all one-to-one, it's all hand-to-hand, it's all one at a time, you really have no decoupling of your time from your income, right? In other words, like if you don't work, if you don't show up to a client call, you're not getting paid, right? If you're not doing, work to attract clients into your world, you're not getting paid. So the reality is your income is not decoupled from your time. There's really no leverage in that sort of situation. If you decide not to work for a month, you're not getting paid for a month, right? On the far end of the equation, it's the total opposite. It's you are impacting people on an ongoing basis, decoupled from your time. Your income is not tied to the number of hours that you work. You don't have to work more hours to make more money. You don't have to work more hours to reach more people. You have fully decoupled or decoupled your time from the impact that you're having and the income that you generate in the world. And so that's what the full leverage equation sort of looks like. And of course, for many of us, like we're somewhere in between, right? Like we've got some things that we do that are somewhat leveraged, some things that we do that are still, one-to-one and still, totally dependent on our time. And then there's a few things that are sort of in between. So we go through these stages in business from no leverage to having semi-leverage to having full leverage. And that really is, for many people, I think a desired state and certainly a desirable outcome to have where you can reach people, even if you're not, working with patients one-on-one, so to speak, by the on a one-on-one basis. Okay, so this idea of the leverage curve is the first concept. All right, next up, what I want to talk about is this idea of the two kind of key components when you are thinking about your business. And I want to invite you to think about your business in terms of these two concepts: attract and deliver. So attraction and delivery. So, attraction and delivery. Attraction is everything that you do in your business to generate clients. It's all the work that you do that brings people into your world who are not yet a paying customer. On the delivery side of things, this is how you deliver your services, the expertise that you deliver. And this can show up in a number of different ways, right? So attraction could be, writing a guest post or speaking on someone's stage or being part of a summit or going to a live event and having one-on-one conversations with people. Delivery, of course, is what you deliver in terms of your paid product or service. It's the one-on-one coaching that you do. It's the course that you're holding. It's the book that you've written. It's the workshop that you're hosting. It's the boot camp that you're doing to empower and help your clients. So we've got two sides of the coin: attraction and delivery. Make sense? We got that? Okay, cool. Now, the next concept that I want to talk about is this idea of enrollment that sits in between the two. So when I talk to many experts, a lot of times what I often hear is what I need help with is attraction, right? They'll say things like, oh, I need more leads. I need more traffic. I need more people in my world so that way I can convert them into clients, into paying customers. But the reality is the place that you want to start is this place in the middle, enrollment. Now, enrollment, what does that refer to exactly? Well, enrollment refers to everything that you do from a sales perspective, everything that you do to move people from that kind of chasm on this side of the canyon to this side of the canyon and becoming a paying customer. It's the sales process. It's the offer that you design, that you are making an irresistible, compelling offer to people so that they are compelled to, quote unquote, cross the chasm from being a non-paying lead to a paying client or customer. It's this enrollment piece right here. So 3 kind of parts to this equation: attraction, enrollment, delivery. And as you think about your own business, I want to invite you to think about the activities that you do as fitting into one of those 3 buckets. Is it a delivery element? Is it an enrollment activity? Or is it an attraction activity? And this is going to be critical to understand the reason for the hybrid program paradigm and why it's so powerful. But first, just kind of checking in again, Michelle, making sure that this concept is landing, that we've got these 3 kind of stages of the process and 3 sort of elements that we are looking at as we go deeper and start peeling away the layers of the onion.
Yeah. So my UI says very helpful framework. Pierre's quite a nugget taker already, which we're loving. How much of my time am I spending on enrollment activities? That's a real nugget for Pierre to be thinking about. Michael says marketing, sales, and delivery. That's kind of how he's thinking about it in
Yeah,
terms of that language.
yeah. That's another great, very different words to describe the same thing. I use these words intentionally because in the context that we're talking about right now, and I'd love to get a read on this, like when you hear the word enrollment versus sales, do those mean 2 different things to you? Do they mean the same thing? Do you hear something different? Do you feel resistance toward one of those words more so than another word? Because you're right, we are talking about marketing, sales, and delivery, for lack of a better term. I'm sure we could come up with a synonym for that. But I've learned in my experience that sometimes there's baggage associated to certain things. I've also found that sometimes there is a confusion between where does marketing end and sales begin? Where is that distinction point? What is a marketing activity and what is a sales activity? Like, for example, if you host a workshop and on the workshop you're delivering a invitation to book a call with you or to sign up for your program, is that workshop or webinar, is that a marketing activity or is that a sales activity? Is it a little bit of both? Is there a transition point along the way where the marketing transitions over to sales? Where does that distinction point lie? So I'd love to know. This is very personal. This is not like a global thing. This is just personally for you. I'd love to know, how those terms land when you hear enrollment versus sales and attraction versus marketing. So that's a great point. So go ahead again, post inside the Q&A.
Brian,
OSI.
one thing I think Lorna said here is that it's a brilliant fine tuner. And I think that's a good kind of phrase here, that this is getting down into some nuances, some fine tuning. And Robert says, hey, is a quiz funnel considered as enrollment or is that marketing? So I can see people trying to categorize the different parts of their process.
That's great. So what would we consider here? So activities that I would consider on the attraction side, we just maybe pause there for a moment as we think about that. Attraction certainly would be a quiz. A quiz or quiz funnel is a way to attract people into your world. On the flip side of things, delivery would be like, for example, a boot camp. We're talking about boot camps elsewhere right now in our business. So you do like a 3-day delivery event. Delivery would also be like, for example, one-on-one work that you do. So if you do any sort of one-on-one consulting or coaching or any sort of one-on-one work that you do, that would be on the delivery side of things. On the attraction side of things, I would also argue that doing something like a free or very low cost, but let's just keep it simple, free workshop or webinar is also on the attraction side. Now, why is that? Because when you're doing a free piece of education, like we're doing here today. Now, there's nothing for sale here today. So just, I want to remind all of us that you can't even buy anything even if you wanted to, right? So there's nothing for sale here today, but doing what we're talking about right now, this is a form of attraction, right? Like you're bringing people into your world, you're teaching them some stuff, you're showing them a little bit about what you know and the way you see the world and the frameworks and ideas that you have. It's a way to attract people in your world so that you can invite them, attract them, for lack of a better term, into that next step of the process, which is the enrollment step. Now, the enrollment step here in this paradigm of kind of mapping, sort of all the different pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, that we might be thinking about, would be any sort of like a sales conversation that you might have, right? If you have someone apply to your program, this would be like the application process that you might have, the one-on-one process, the one-on-one conversation that you have, making the offer itself. So presenting the offer that you're inviting people to sign up for. So if you do one-on-one work, it's where you say, hey, now the opportunity to work together, it looks like this. We have a one-on-one call every single week. It's 45 minutes. We talk about this, that, and the other thing, and whatever your deliverables might be. So it's the offer itself. It's the formulation of the offer, and it's also the articulation of that offer as well. And what you'll find is that this is intentional. The reason why this word is written above these others is that there's a tendency to start here and forget about this key piece in the middle. But this is actually where you want to begin. Because it doesn't matter how many people take your quiz. It doesn't matter what your experience is working with clients. You could be doing this for 50 years. It doesn't matter how brilliant you are. If you don't have this part down right here, you're never going to move people from the orange side of the equation to the blue side of the equation. This is where it all begins. And what I find is that a lot of people have this misconception that here or here is where they need to spend time. But the reality is it's often here. It's often this piece in the middle. It's creating that compelling, irresistible offer. It's really dialing in your enrollment process. So that way, when you have a conversation with someone, if you're talking with people one-on-one, that you can enroll them, whether they're the right fit or the wrong fit. So this is the kind of next layer down. We're just peeling away layers of the onion, right? So a little bit of a sidebar conversation around kind of mapping together some of these options. And by the way, this is not an exhaustive list. We could bullet out other items here, as well as down here. This is just kind of for illustrative purposes. All right, so now let's take a look at this right here. Now, the reality is when we look at this sort of section right here that I've zoomed in on, the reality is if we zoom out a little bit further, this is just a microcosm of a much larger equation. And this is where the idea of leverage is going to map onto this equation. Now, we know that, the end goal for most of us is that we get to this full leverage point, right? We're making money when we sleep. We don't have to do one-on-one work. We've decoupled our income from our time. So we continue to make money even when we're not actively serving clients, actively engaged in enrollment and attraction activities. There's revenue and income coming in, irrespective of the time that you've spent. You've decoupled your time from your income equation. That is the goal that I think many of us have, certainly a dream for many of us. Now, when we're here, this part of the equation right here, when we're at the middle, you'll notice here that the number of people that we can reach on the attraction side and the number of people that we can serve on the delivery side is relatively small because these activities are not decoupled. In other words, we're not having leverage in these areas. In other words, we might be having a lot of one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat style attraction activities. We might be, doing things like manual posting of in different communities online, or maybe you're speaking at a local workshop or live event on stage, and and you need to do it. It's tied to you. If you don't actually go there, it's just you one-on-one. Same thing on the delivery side. It's one-on-one delivery. You're working with people in a way that's a one-on-one program. If we move down a little bit down this equation, you'll start to notice that as we expand in both of these different directions, as we expand in the directions of increasing the number of people that we want to serve on the delivery side and reaching more people on the attraction side, we start to get increasing amounts of leverage. And I want to show you what this looks like when we kind of marry the first leverage curve on top of this enrollment curve that you see right here. And it looks a little something like this. On the delivery side, when we have no leverage, we're serving a small number of people and we reach a ceiling because there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many hours, days in the week. And at some point you're out of time. Like if you've got like 40 clients one-on-one and each client is an hour and you've got 40 work hours in a week, there's no time for anything else. And so what happens is you back up against the ceiling. Now, conversely, when you've decoupled your income from your time and you have full leverage, you basically have unlimited capability in terms of the number of people that you can serve, certainly on a theoretical basis. Same thing is true on the attraction side. When the activities that you are performing are not decoupled from your time, you're limited. You have no ability to deleverage, no ability to get leverage from your time on the attraction side. But as you move further and further in this direction, you can reach more and more people. So what happens is there's this sort of S curve, and this is the concept that I want us to arrive at, this idea of the leverage S curve as an expert, whereby the goal is to have a curve that looks like this, where you are able to attract people in a leveraged way that move into your world and serve people in a leveraged way as well. Both sides of the equation, the attraction side of the equation and the delivery side of the equation, are decoupled from your personal time. Now, first of all, I'm going to pause before I kind of go into this in more detail. This idea of this S curve, does this make sense? Do you understand this idea of moving simultaneously in this direction on the delivery side, in this idea of moving in this direction on the attraction side? So I'll pause here. Michelle, give you an opportunity to look at the Q&A. Give me a chance to take a quick sip of water right here. I just want to make sure, does this make sense? Let us know inside the Q&A. And Michelle, any questions or notable comments that have come up along the way? I want to give us an opportunity to pause and look at this as we have this up on our screen.
Yeah, Philippe is saying, look, this is exactly where I am at. Michael's saying, yes, great model. There's a yes, total sense from Kimberly. Clement says, hey, I understand, but it's kind of nothing new so far. Like where is the secret sauce in all of this? Kim says, yes, makes total sense. Juvenile says complete sense. James, complete sense. Robert says, hey, I understand the what. I'm looking forward to the how. Liz is finding this really helpful. Melanie wants to know more. Tell us more. Explain this more deeply. And Dr. Tanya is saying, great model. Halo says, the leverage sides of each aspect is clear, but I'm not sure I understand the enrollment being in the middle where the unleveraged resources are. So there's still some questions about that. And Dan says, as a member of the Ask Coaching, this is really resonating. So it's obviously resonating with what Dan's hearing elsewhere in that program. Stefano says, makes sense, of course. But how do I do this without like a team? What else do I need to leverage with that? So it's obviously sparking a lot of questions for people. And Ryan, I'm kind of curious as to where people might even be on this S curve.
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's take it in. Well, let's look and take this in half, right? So let's first talk about delivery. Okay, so on the delivery side of things, we'll talk delivery. So first part is delivery. Just a quick straw poll here inside the group. Where would you see yourself on the delivery side of things in your business? In other words, do you feel like you're at a point right now where you have no or very little leverage? In other words, you're doing a lot of one-on-one client work on the delivery side of things. Are you sort of at that semi point? So maybe a midpoint, you do some one-on-one work, some group work, or are you fully leveraged? Like all the work that you do when you are serving your customers, you're doing it in a group setting. You're doing it in a one-to-many setting. So let us know on the delivery side of things, where are you in this spectrum from no leverage, semi-leverage to full leverage, just focused on the delivery side of things. Give us a sense for kind of where the group is at. And I'm seeing here inside the Q&A. Great.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yep. Great. Yeah. Okay. Semi, no, very little leverage, starting to recruit. Semi, not there, no leverage. Most of the time is taken for delivery. Good. And this is all building, guys. I know some of you are like, I just get to the new stuff, but I want us to get to a place where this is all going to make sense. And the context of what we're talking about is going to make sense because I'm going to be sharing something that may sound a little controversial here in a moment. And I think it's important to understand the underlying reasons for that, because this comment that I'll be making shortly, without context, is going to sound perhaps you might question where that's coming from. Okay, now let's go on the other side of the S curve right here, and then let's take a look at the attraction side of things. So if we go over here, left-hand side of the curve, on the attraction side of things, where would you say your level of leverage is right now? From no leverage, in other words, the way that you're attracting clients in your world is a lot of, reaching out to referrals, people that you know, doing a lot of, one-to-one type work. Everything comes through you. You might do some speaking, but it's not in a leveraged way. It's like you've got to, show up to the event and do it live. Would you consider yourself on the attraction side, no leverage, semi-leverage, or full leverage? So full leverage would be fully automated funnel that is bringing in leads on cold traffic day in and day out. You have an automated webinar or workshop that's done on repeat every single day or every single week. You don't have to show up live. It's literally happening in the background. It's a machine. It's an acquisition machine. That's what the full leverage picture looks like. The no leverage is, again, reaching out to referrals, a lot of one-on-one work. And then semi is kind of like somewhere in between. So on the attraction side, just in the Q&A, let us know, where do you feel like you fit? And this is, it's a bit subjective, and it's intentionally subjective, but where do you think you fit on this spectrum? And Michelle, I'll give you a chance to share a little bit of what we're seeing inside the chat Q&A.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of just no leverage on the attraction side. And then we've got a couple that are on semi and I saw this in on the delivery side as well, kind of somewhere between no and semi. So there's some people that are like, they don't feel like they're fully unleveraged, but they wouldn't yet call themselves semi-leveraged. And I think there's quite a few people that are in that boat. But I would say the overwhelming majority of responses here are no leverage. Right. And we're seeing like no leverage, and I've got very little time available for this now. So it's that trap, I'm not leveraged. How do I, and I don't have time. If I'm putting a lot more time into something to make it leveraged, I'm stuck in this trap.
So, and this is going to get to the crux of why we're all here today. Because what happens when you simultaneously try to move in this direction over here and at the same time move in this direction over here? When you're pulled in two different directions at the same time. It's impossible, right? You go from here to here to here to here. You end up doing what? You end up standing still and being stuck. And this is what we see, is we see experts, people who have tremendous value to add in the world, pulling themselves in two different directions at the same time, wanting to simultaneously reach more people in the way that they deliver their products and services, and at the same time, expand their ability to attract. And what happens when you're in that situation is that you can't do both of those things at the same time. You have to do it in a phased approach. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. The other piece right now is this. For those of us who are stuck in this one-to-one paradigm, I see this all the time, is that there's no time for anything else, right? It's like you've got all that you can handle to work, aside from all the other demands of life, being a parent, being a caretaker, being a, just all the things, being a community member, being part of your church, being part of your, things that you do, volunteering, just all the demands that you have of life, cleaning your house and cooking for your family, just all the things, right? But aside from all those sort of domestic and personal responsibilities, is that when you are here, therein lies the trap. You cannot do this until you make the shift from here to here. That's the controversial statement. You cannot make the shift of having leveraged attraction if you're driving people into a one-to-one paradigm. Now, why is that? Well, think about it. Just think about it from a theoretical standpoint, right? You start bringing in more clients and you fill up your client roster and you're working with people one-on-one until you reach what? A ceiling. Because there's one thing that none of us, no matter how good we are at life and business, can manufacture, and that's what? It's a four-letter word. What's the one thing that none of us can manufacture? More time, right? We can't manufacture more time. So at some point we reach a ceiling. And when you reach a ceiling, what happens is that there's no room for any of this, right? Whatever your number is, like you're maxed out at how many clients, right? If you're maxed out at 5 clients, maybe it's 1 client, you've got like 1 big client engagement that you work on at a time. Maybe it's 10 clients, 20 clients, whatever it is. But when you're doing one-on-one work, whether it's DFY, DIY, whether it's consulting, whether it's coaching, whatever it is, that one-on-one paradigm, at some point you reach a ceiling. And then what happens is that there's no time for this, no time for this. And so what happens is it's this feast or famine. You've got all, sometimes where it's like, you don't know where your next client is going to come from. And then you got to hustle and go back to here. And then there's other times where it's like, I can't even handle the clients that are coming my way and I have to turn people away. And it's not a great place to be in. So you go through this income roller coaster, you go through this feast or famine. It's incredibly unsettling as a person because it feels like your life is unstable. Like it feels like you just don't know what income you can count on because you have such variability in your business. So the controversial statement is this: in order to have this, in order to have this leverage, both on the attraction side and the delivery side, the first thing that you need to do, and that's the topic of our conversation here today, is create a leveraged destination point that you can move people into, transition into, so that you freed yourself, you freed enough time and headspace and attention so that you can actually build the system that will create this S-curve. And until you've done that, until you've gotten yourself out of that one-to-one paradigm, you'll never be able to get out of it. My mentor has been famous for saying that we are all responsible for building the prison that we are inside of right now. I am giving you the key to get yourself out of that prison. And the key to get yourself out of that prison is the hybrid program. And that's what we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about hybrid program. What does that mean exactly? And more importantly, how do you transition from that one-to-one unleveraged delivery to that fully leveraged delivery in a hybrid fashion, so that you can free yourself up to have all of this, that desired end state, the full leverage equation, where you have fully decoupled your income from your time. All right, so let's talk about how we do this exactly. But before we do that, Michelle, I'm just going to do a quick pause. Does this make sense? Are you getting this? Do we get it? You may disagree with me, and that's fine. I'd love the dissent, by the way. This is it's an open conversation. Again, I have no agenda. I'm just sharing you what we're seeing and what we've seen in our business and what we're seeing with our students and clients. Michelle, what are you seeing inside the Q&A? Either comments, questions, confusion?
I think people are just completely engrossed. We're not seeing too many questions.
Okay.
And I think that, like, there's one question here I'm going to hold just until it's a little more relevant. But if you have got a question, go ahead and put it into the Q&A. This could be a great moment to surface that. There's a few nuggets being shared. Melanie says, I feel like Ryan just described my life. And I'm really keen to dig into that a little more, Ryan. Like, I'd love people to share with us here, like I know I've been an expert in that situation on that roller coaster. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that actually looks like for people, so we can really understand that. Kimberly says, I have to build and move people into that high leverage program before the rest of the engine can be built. That is the nugget that she is really taking away from that share that you just did there, Ryan. Svetlana says, my stomach hurts time. I'm so affective with my clients, but the circle is small, and the time piece is really resonating with people. They're feeling that trap of time, knowing what they want to get done and not having the time. And Robert's making the point about that kind of hybrid program, if you can get to that point, that does the heavy lifting, which is a great phrase. Soundly resonating for Juvenile. Michael is really curious about the path out. That's kind of yeah. And Liz says, I am the bottleneck or throttle on my business. And so the phased approach is something that people are really curious about. How do I phase this so I can get to that point?
So let's do that. That's great. And here's the deal. We are all time starved, all of us. So the question is, where do you spend those precious moments of time that you have? Because there's no room for wasting time. There's no room to waste time on things that might work. There's no room to waste time on the easy but non-essential, the stuff that we all, fall into traps of doing, myself included. Like, admit, you know that you have that thing that you do that is like the non-urgent, non-important work that makes you feel good because you're getting the dopamine hit and you're able to check boxes off on your to-do list. You're able to cross things off. You're like, oh, look at that. I responded to 10 emails here today. How productive am I? And the reality is you don't get any closer to the goal that you want to get to because you're focused on that urgent, non-important work that is a trap. It's a trap, frankly. And then we all have our, procrastination things that we do, surfing the internet and, being on social media and watching videos or reading, whatever we do. We all have our own version of that. And I'm going to be the first to admit that, I'm right there on that list. So with all that said, we got to focus on the essential stuff. But before we can get clear on the path, we need to know what the destination might potentially look like. So what I want to share with you is a diagram, and I want to invite you as I go through this. We're going to fill this out together. I want to invite you. This is that kind of time where I mentioned at the beginning of our session to get a piece of paper, get something to take some notes with, and go through this, because this is going to help you create a vision for yourself, a vision for your life, a vision for your future on what that destination could look like. And then we're going to talk about the path to get from where you are right now to where you want to get to. Okay, so first things first, this hybrid revolution idea. Let's talk about, we're going to start here on the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side, and we're going to talk about this transition going from one-to-one to one-to-many. So I'm going to write it like this, from 1 to 1, and maybe do it like this, to one-to-many, which is that kind of journey that we're talking about here in terms of having more leverage, decoupling your income from your time. The menu of options that you have to consider, that many people consider, are things like, all right, should I create an online course? Right, that's one option that people think about. So should I do an online course? Let's see if I can write and talk at the same time here, an online course. Some people say maybe I should create a membership, right? So that's kind of one of the options on the menu of options that you have in front of you. Should you create a group coaching? Like if you're doing one-on-one coaching, should you do like a group coaching approach? Should you do a mastermind, right? That's another option. And does everyone know the difference between a mastermind and group coaching? I'll just take a moment to define it. So mastermind, group coaching is where there is a set curriculum or set path that people are following, and the coaching work that's done is around that path. So in other words, there's a success path or a curriculum. There's a core sort of set of teaching that everybody is following, and then there's coaching through that. A mastermind is very different in that it is tied around a group of people, and the assembled group of people themselves are the products. In other words, there isn't an expert who is, kind of the author, the speaker, the person, the expert in the front of the room, so to speak, virtually or figuratively or literally. A mastermind is assembled around a group of people, and the group of people are helping each other in a way that's very collaborative. So it's a sort of distinct model. And this is going to come into play when we fill out the right-hand side of this box in just a moment. You might consider an event-based model. So that could be like virtual events. We're talking about boot camps right now as one option when it comes to transforming your income into your expertise into income. Or what we're going to be talking about here, maybe, just maybe, there are some elements from each of these different menu options that perhaps could be combined in the form of a hybrid. Now, the beauty of the hybrid model is that you're not putting yourself into a box. You're able to take the elements from each of these different sort of menu options that we have at our disposal to go from one-on-one to one-to-many, but do it in a way that works for you. Do it in a way that serves you, serves your lifestyle, serves the goals that you have, the time commitment that you want to have in place, the level of scale that you want to have in your life or business. Do you want to serve tens of people or tens of thousands of people, right? What's your aspiration? And by the way, there's no right answer to that. Like there are virtues on either end of that spectrum and everywhere in between. Okay. So let's play for a moment with this idea that maybe, just maybe, the best option for you is to not put yourself in a box, but instead to create a hybrid program, a program that represents the best elements that work for you. So I want to walk you through this idea of a hybrid program model that you can take with you to think about how to design and create your ideal program that serves your ideal life. So the first question that we need to be thinking about is the question around duration. And I'd invite you to think about this right now as well. So duration, right? When it comes to creating your program, and I'll sort of highlight this in different colors to make it stand out a little bit more. Make this a little bit wider. When it comes to creating your program, you've got some options, right? Are you going to create a 1 month experience? Is it a 3 month experience? Is it a 6 month experience? Is it a 12-month experience? Or are you creating a program that is ongoing? There's no fixed end. It's just it keeps going on in perpetuity until you decide that you're going to close it down or end it. What I'm going to advocate for you when you make this transition from no leverage to leverage, that whatever decisions you make in the sort of next steps in this process, to consider doing it in a fixed term structure. The reason for that is before you go all in and make something permanent, remember that idea. We are all responsible for the prisons that we are inside of right now. Don't create a prison for yourself that represents a life sentence. Instead, give yourself the ability to change, to modify, to edit, to adapt after a fixed point in time. So instead of saying, I'm going to make this my thing forever, instead consider creating an experience for your clients or prospective clients that has a start and an end to it. Whether that is a 1 month experience, a 3 month experience, 6 or 12. If you go on the shorter side of this equation, it gives you a faster time horizon to make any moves, any switches, right? So you can go from, if you say, you know what, I'm going to create a 30-day experience. And after 30 days, you can reevaluate. You can say, this worked, this didn't work. The next time I do this, I'm going to do things a little bit differently, right? So keep that in mind. That's the first decision point. And I've expressed my bias toward what to be thinking about. Then we're going to talk about the 4 different areas, the 4 different aspects of your program that you want to be thinking about when it comes to delivering the key elements. And they are as follows. The first element to be thinking about is, how are you delivering your formal teaching, right? The teaching that you are putting in place. We're going to talk about some options for that in just a moment. Next up is interaction. How are you and members of your program going to interact with you and together? So interaction is the second component to be thinking about. Next up is community. How are you going to be building or putting together some form of community? In other words, what does that look like? How are people going to be part of something that's more than just a relationship directly with you? And then last but not least, as I color this in right now, the 4th box that we're going to be talking about and filling in together is support. How are you supporting people? When people have a question, when they get stuck, when they need help with something, how are people going to get support and help from you? We'll make that one. How about this orange color? All right. I lost the bottom of my T. Okay. So 4 key areas. Every program needs to have them. If you don't have them, people will fill in these gaps themselves. In other words, if you don't have adequate formal teaching around the area that you want to help people with in their life or their business, they will find and fill that void elsewhere. They will bring outside teaching into your world, whether it's something that you agree with or not, and they will fill that void. Same thing with interaction. If you're not offering an opportunity for people to interact with one another, then and with you, then they will find ways to do that. They will seek that and fill that desire elsewhere if you're not filling that void. Same thing with community. If people don't have a way formally to interact with other members of your community in some way, shape, or form, they will create that on their own, and it'll be in an unsanctioned way, or it can be in a sanctioned way that you have the ability to influence and the ability to foster. And last but not least, people will find a way to get support. They will come to your house and knock on your door if they have to get their questions answered. So you got to think about each of these elements. Now, let's talk about the options that you have to consider when it comes to each of these right here. Now, we're not going to be talking about a fully exhaustive list, but what I want you to be thinking about is this is sort of like if you've ever gone to one of those restaurants like Chipotle or one of those, Asian restaurants where you get to pick like what kind of rice you want, and then what kind of vegetables you want to put in, and what kind of protein you want to add into the mix, and what sort of spice or sauce you're going to add. And you kind of get to choose from a few different menu options and then create your own custom dish. That's sort of what we're doing right here when it comes to this model right now. So let's first talk about teaching and the options that you have sort of at your disposal when it comes to teaching. So teaching, do you want to do all your teaching live? So we're here live. This is an example of live teaching, right? There's some great benefits to it. Doing live teaching allows interaction, just like we're doing right now. It allows you to be, fully engaged with people. You can ask questions, you can get feedback, you can pivot, you can, do a lot of things that we're doing right here. So a lot of benefits to it. One of the downsides is it's live, meaning like you've got to arrange your life in your schedule. So if your schedule is such that, the only time you have available to do this is nights and weekends, when you're through with your day job, then live teaching can be difficult if you like to work at 1 o'clock in the morning when the rest of the world is asleep, right? So live is one option. Of course, the opposite, the alternative is recorded. So if you're the type of person that, gets up 4 in the morning and you feel super productive and you're like, yeah, that's when my brain is on fire, I want to do all my stuff recorded, it's a great option. If you're the type of person that likes to have more of an event-focused way of teaching, whereby you're gathering people together over the course of a day, several days in the form of an intensive or a boot camp. Maybe it's over 3 days where you're bringing a concentrated group of people together in a concentrated period of time. That is another option as well. Now let's contrast that with the interaction piece right here. Now, when it comes to interaction, similarly, you need to be thinking about how people are going to be able to interact with you. Are you going to be doing, for example, small groups? So that could be small group breakout sessions that you have on a platform like Zoom, where people get to, break out either with you or with a sub-expert or sub-teacher that you might have working with you. Do you want to offer Q&A sessions? Q&A sessions can be done in a number of different ways. You can do it live where people get to ask their questions like right here, right now, live. People can pre-submit questions to you ahead of time and you can get those questions answered. Or do you prefer maybe doing something like hot seats? Hot seats are where, let's take a person situation, right? So if we had time for a hot seat here today, it would be like, let's take someone on the call. Maybe we'll do that, if we've got time. I'll see where I'm at on my schedule here and timing wise. I don't know that we have time to do this today. If we don't, maybe we'll do a future session on this. Yeah, maybe we'll see. I don't want to make a promise that I can't keep. But a hot seat would be like, let's take someone's business right here on the call live. Like, tell me a little bit about your business. Let's design a hybrid program for you, right? So with these elements right here, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just an illustrative list, right? The next thing that you want to be thinking about is the time horizon, the cadence that you are delivering each of these things. In other words, are you going to be doing teaching on a weekly basis in your program? Are you doing teaching on a monthly basis? Are you doing teaching on another basis, right? Maybe it's something every single day. Maybe it's micro teaching, whatever it may be. And then similarly, you've got the same sort of decision point as it relates to your interaction, okay? So the interaction piece, right? So in other words, are you going to be doing an interaction piece every week, every month? Is it every, a different cadence or format that works for you? All right, before we get to these next two boxes here, I just want to take a quick, time out, pause, check in, Michelle. Everyone, is this making sense? You getting this? nuggets, wheels turning? Are you starting to get ideas as you think about your program and maybe looking at your existing program right now and either where it's had issues or maybe where it's working or not working as well as it might be? There's going to be a key point I'm going to share with you here in just a moment, but just I want to check in, make sure this is all making sense, making sure I'm not going either too fast or skipping over something that may be a confusion point.
Sure thing, Ryan. Hey, just before we do that, a couple of people have communicated that they cannot find a Q&A button at the bottom of their screen. And so if that is you, the team is telling me you may just need to update your Zoom. It could be that you're running on an older Zoom. The other thing is you may want to try leaving and coming back in. Or the other option, and something that I think could be an issue, is if you just expand your window. Sometimes Zoom kind of closes down all the options you can see at the bottom. So if you've kind of shrunk your window down, try expanding the window back up and you might see that Q&A option appears there. It's a little icon down the bottom in the black strip. So go ahead and let us know if you can see that. But a lot of people here are saying this makes total sense. Liz says this is a helpful breakdown of components. And Michelle says this is getting so much clearer in how to fully develop my business, which I think is really the whole gist of this, right, Ryan? We're not just experts selling one thing, we are running a business. And when we can think of it that way, we step into so much more leverage. Christy says, love, love, love. This is the direction we're already going, but this guidance is amazing. And I love something that somebody posted earlier when you listed out all the list of things that kind of fit into a hybrid program. And Christina said, so it's literally what I just did with my Neurospicy Entrepreneurial Academy. It's membership based. We've got live classes, recorded classes, office hours, virtual campus, some masterminding, so people are starting to see, I'm possibly leaning in some of these directions anyway. And it's what our customers are really demanding from us as well. A few people are noticing that kind of ability to have a bit more recurring income, which is a possibility from this. And that nugget of those 4 areas to think about: teaching, interaction, community, support, is really landing for people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's keep going on then. This is great. So you've hopefully started to think a little bit about kind of your teaching element, your interaction element, and then now let's talk a little bit about community and kind of the options that you have sort of at your disposal. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, but it's just kind of an illustrative list. So of course you could do something on a kind of an open social media platform like a Facebook and have a Facebook group. We use Facebook groups in our business, in part because when we started a lot of our programs, certainly our primary program, which is our hybrid program, which I'll kind of give you a little bit of insight into, Facebook was really the only game in town for something like this. But Facebook is a great option. I know many of us have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. I'm on that list too. Like I'm not a Facebook apostle. It's like there's some days where I'm like, I never want to spend another minute on Facebook, and other days where I say, I'm really glad Facebook exists. So I can totally appreciate if you have some of those sentiments. The next sort of option would be to just do something that's in a little bit more of a closed thread format, which would be something like, I'm just going to abbreviate this, like a WhatsApp group, a Telegram group for TE stands for Telegram, a Signal group. And I'm part of communities that use all 3. I've got, the apps on my phone for different communities. I'm part of WhatsApp groups, Signal, Telegram, and there are others, but those are just kind of a few of the main ones. And then last but not least, you could do something like a paid membership software, like a Circle. So Circle.so is an option. I'm part of a few communities that use Circle. Another one is Mighty Networks that you're probably familiar with. I'm part of a few communities like that. But again, this is not an exhaustive list. There are other programs out there, but the fact of the matter is, you do something that's open like a Facebook. It's free. Benefit, it's free. You do something that's closed, also free, like WhatsApp or Telegram or Signal. Or you can do a Discord group. That's another option. Or you have a paid software you've got a little bit more control over. There's a cost element to it as well. And you can go in this direction over here, right? So something on the community front. And then last but not least, on the support side of things, you get to decide, how are you supporting people? Are you supporting people through email? Email support. If they've got a question, they email your customer service desk, and your customer service desk, whether it's you manning that desk or members of your team, you're answering that. Is it one-on-one calls? So maybe you are doing some one-on-one element. Maybe that's part of the hybrid equation for you, that you are doing some one-on-one work. Or maybe it's a knowledge base. Abbreviate that KB. A knowledge base is, a place that you can send people to answer all the most frequently asked questions that come up over and over again in your community and in your group. Okay, so taking a look at this right here, there's an important point that I want to drive home, and this is something that I hope will be a nugget for everybody here on this call, and that's this. When you create your program, resist the temptation to have more than one ingredient from each box. Say that again. When you start your program or create your program, resist the temptation to do all of the above. Because here's the thing, and I've learned this the hard way, so let me pass this lesson on to you. You can always add more stuff down the road. It is virtually impossible to take stuff away from people once they've gotten used to it. When you're used to eating dessert every night, or your kids are used to eating dessert every single night, and you say, there's no dessert tonight, that is a hard conversation to have, versus holding out and saying, someday maybe we might want to add to the mix, as opposed to delivering everything out of the gate. So that is an important lesson that I want to pass along with you. Okay, to you. So let's take a look at what different options might look like. So let's say, for example, let's do this. So here's an option. Maybe you decide that you're going to start by creating a 90-day program. So we're going to do a 3-month program. Let me do it like this. Okay, so we start with a 3-month program. We're going to do over the course of 3 months, 90 days, we're going to do a live teaching, and we're going to do it once a week. And every single week, there's going to be a Q&A call that happens weekly as well. And we're going to do the live training on a Tuesday, and we're going to do the Q&A on a Friday. So we do a teaching on a topic, and then we do a Q&A over a 90-day period. It's enough time for you to cover all the topics that you might want to cover. Community-wise, we're just going to do a simple Facebook group to keep it super duper simple. And then from a support side of things, it's just going to be email support. So there's no one-on-one coaching. We're just going to, if someone needs has an issue that they need to deal with independently, it's email. And that's it. We're not adding any other ingredients. We're not saying, well, we're going to do email, and we're going to do a knowledge base, and we're going to do one-on-one calls, and we're going to do a hot seats, and we're going to do small group. All right. So that is a possible scenario. Another possible scenario, let's say that we're doing, a 1-month session, and we're going to do maybe a weekly pre-recorded training. And every single week, we're going to mix that up with a hot seat that we do every single week. It's a small group. It's an intimate group. So we're just going to run it on Signal, which is kind of like something you can just kind of run on your phone. You are going to have a email. Will be if someone needs help, they can just email you. Okay, that's a scenario. Maybe you're saying, all right, well, I want to preserve an element of one-on-one. I want to have a one-on-one call with all of my clients that come in. I want to preserve that element of it. But I want to marry that with some recorded training that gets introduced to the group. Maybe it's just a one-time training that everybody gets when they first get started. I'm going to try this out for 3 months. I'm going to do a small group, sort of mini mastermind that happens. We'll do that once a week. You know what? I don't really like Facebook. I don't like, WhatsApp. I'm going to do this on Circle. I'm going to do it on Circle, so I have a little bit more control over my, sort of scenario. So you can see here, this is very much, as Michelle would say in Australia, pick and mix. We might say mix and match here in America. You can pick and choose a lot of the different elements along the way. Now, first of all, before we go any further, does this make sense? This idea of picking one and only one ingredient from each of these boxes before you get started, does that point make sense? Yes, no, maybe so. I want to make sure that we're clear on that point. In this idea of being able to kind of assemble these ingredients on your dish to create a dish that works for you. It's the right, mix for your goals, for the time commitment that you're able to make, and everything that you have in place right now. I want to make sure that that concept makes sense. All right. Okay, good. So a few more things that I want to share with you, and then I want to get your questions because I want to leave a little bit of time to answer the questions that you have based on everything that we've covered so far here today. And that's this. Who here feels resistance around the transition from serving clients in a one-on-one way to then migrating what you do into a group setting? Like, who feels like resistance around that idea? Let me know in the Q&A. Like, yes, you just write resistance if you feel resistance, because it's something that shows up a lot, right? So for those of us who are in this business, as experts, and even if you don't consider yourself an expert, let's just play with that term for just a moment. One of the things that I see show up a lot, and it manifests itself in different ways, is this idea of imposter syndrome around feeling like it's not enough, feeling like we don't know enough, feeling like, but wait, I still, who am I to be advising other people, right? There's that old adage, those who can't do, teach, right? And it's a terrible adage because I think there are great teachers in the world that, are tremendous at what they do. And they're great, doers in the world, and there are people who do both, right? It shows up in a few different ways. One of the ways that it shows up is this desire, for those of you who maybe felt resistance, around over-delivering in your program. It shows up where you say, but that's not enough. I can't just do one live teaching session every week and one Q&A every single week, a Facebook group and, a knowledge base. Like, that's not enough. I've got to deliver more. So we present it under the guise of over-delivering, in a desire to over-deliver. But over-delivery is really the flip side to the shadow side of feeling like we don't measure up, that we're not good enough, that what we're doing is not good enough. So we compensate. We compensate by over-delivering. We give to the point of burnout. And we get burned out, and then we wonder why we are inside this prison that we've created for ourselves. And it becomes this cycle, this never-ending cycle. And a lot of us, for certainly myself, and I won't project this on anyone else, but for a lot of us that feel that, it is a journey of deep introspection to understand where some of those feelings come from of not measuring up. And when you get to the root of that, then oftentimes you can kind of break free of that prison. But it shows up in a noble cause, through a noble cause that we have sold ourselves, that we've convinced ourselves of by saying, I'm doing this because I want to over-deliver. But the reality is, when we're alone at night and by ourselves in our room, it's because we feel like we don't measure up. We don't measure up, and we're not good enough. So that's the first half of the equation. The second piece that I hear a lot of times in making this transition from one-on-one to one-to-many is one-to-many feels like a not as good option. Does anyone feel that way? Like, one-on-one is the best. Like, the best thing that you could possibly deliver to someone is working with them one-on-one. The one-to-many option is the not as good option. Like, it's not as desirable. It's not as ideal. Let me know inside the Q&A if that thought has ever shown up for you, where it's felt like, yeah, but why would my one-on-one clients ever agree to go to one-to-many? It's like kind of going from a nice fancy house to a small not fancy house, or a nice fancy car to a not nice fancy car. So it's this sort of perception that it's a not as good as situation. Yeah, I see a few of us saying, yeah, it's showing up inside for sure. The reality is, and this is something that is important for you to get your mind around and really get your get aligned with, is that this approach is actually a better than this approach for all sorts of different reasons. One-on-one, people have a relationship with you and you alone. In a setting like this, people not only have access to you, but they have access to a wealth of experts through the interaction and community that you foster. That thing that you say to every single one of your clients when you get on the client call with them, and you know what that thing is, you probably have those 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 things that it feels like you're repeating yourself over and over again. Anyone have those things? Yeah. Imagine a world where you never have to repeat that ever again because you're sharing that in a group setting. You're conveying that message, you're conveying that information. The thing that you repeat yourself over and over again, you're saying it in a way that's full of energy, not in a way that's filled with cynicism and frustration because it feels like you've repeated yourself for the millionth time with your millionth client. And if you don't think that your clients feel that cynicism and frustration, trust me, they do. What that does is it opens the door for you to have the one-on-one time that you do have with your clients, serving them in a way that is only related to their personal, private, unique circumstances that truly are different from everybody else. And all the 80 to 90 to 95% of the things that are common challenges that all of your clients run into, now you have leverage of being able to serve them in this way. So I'm going to pause on this for now. I'm looking at the time. We have about 15 minutes before we do need to wrap things up. I have a brief exercise that I'd like for us to do before we get to the end of our time. I'm going to leave 5 minutes for that, but I'd like to make room for about 10 minutes of Q&A because frankly, this is the start of a conversation. This is not the end of a conversation. And I know that there are probably other things that you would love to get answers to. And I'd love to know what those things are. And we'll try to cover as much of that as we can here around creating your program, designing your program, selling your program, enrolling people, the attraction piece, the enrollment piece, the delivery piece, the transition piece from one-on-one to one-to-many, depending on where you are right now. Michelle, I'd love to invite you to take a look at the Q&A, and anybody who has a question, just use that hashtag question, let us know what it is, and we'll try to cover a few of these that make sense to cover in this time. And if there's interest, like if you have interest, I'm happy to do like another session, more sessions, just like we're doing here today, to talk more about some of these concepts and really bring this all to light. So Michelle, I'm going to take a quick sip of water here to catch my breath. What questions are we seeing inside the Q&A that would be worth touching on at this point?
Sure. So Victor says, loving this so far. My question is, when is community not necessary? Can we focus on teaching, interaction, and support if people in the program aren't inclined to use the community?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think these are things that you can dial up and down and emphasize more or less based on the dynamics of your teaching and the work that you do. So you may be in a situation where the teaching is like front and center and the community is something that plays a back seat. You might have a program whereby the community is really front and center and the teaching is sort of secondary. But the reality is there is a void if you do not fill each of these boxes. People will find a way to fill that void elsewhere, either with you or without you. So I would advocate, if community maybe isn't the biggest or most important thing in the world, keep it super simple. Maybe you just set up a simple little WhatsApp group where people can, post their questions or comments or feedback if they want to connect with one another, lightly facilitated, just making sure that there's no spam or inappropriate, just disrespectful comments that, some people leave when they're in an online setting. Just lightly curated to make sure that it is a safe place, but there is a space for people to connect in the form of community. As they say, the old adage is, people come for the content, but stay for the community. Michelle, what else do we have?
Yeah. And, people think community is always a Facebook group or something really big. And I really love that last point you made about just finding the dimension, the DNA of community in how you want to share it and be supporting that. This is somewhat related. So I want to cover this one now with you, Ryan. This one, I don't know the person's name. They're an anonymous participant. So they're doing done for you services. Clients specifically don't want to have to learn anything. How does teaching show up there?
Great question. Then you're thinking about having leverage in maybe, maybe a different sort of way. The challenge with done for you, when you're in that paradigm, is it is a service paradigm, and it is difficult to have the same level of leverage than when you are transitioning from a done for you to a done with you model. So what's the difference? You've got DIY, done for you, DFY, and DWY, done with you. The done with you model is one where you can have more leverage on some of the places that you're running into the same set of common questions, challenges, steps that you take people through. So for example, teaching in this case could be walking people through the process of filling out your intake questionnaire that you need to do with clients on a one-on-one basis, but you're doing it every single time, right? So instead of doing that one-on-one, you're doing that more in a group setting. So everybody is filling that out together. Yes, you may have some elements of the DFY that are unique to a client, but the challenge that I would invite you to give yourself is which parts of your process could you do in a group setting? Like give yourself that constraint, right? So just wipe the slate clean. If you were to do it in a leveraged way, what might that look like? Or what steps might be easier to do that for than others? And I would challenge you to say that there are probably elements of your process in the DFY paradigm that you're in right now that could be, maybe with a little bit of rejigging, maybe with a little bit of thought, that could be done in a more leveraged way. And that hopefully will start unlocking your thinking on what's possible in moving more to a hybrid and more leveraged model. Shall.
Thank you so much, Ryan. There are a few people here saying, question, can we do more town halls like this? That seems to be a really popular question in the moment. This is a question that got asked a little earlier that I said I was going to save for later. And this is from Christy. She says, you may get to this, but our biggest issue is that we have amazing engagement and following for our free materials and excellent feedback from our paying clients. Our failure is in converting those engaged people to enrolled people. So what would you say there? And there was a bit of a follow-up I saw Christy mention later. She's saying, are we just giving away too much for free before people feel like they need to upgrade? Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's this piece right here, right? And frankly, what I see is exactly what you're describing, is that people tend to spend a lot of time here, right? A lot of time with great free content, putting, pouring goodwill out into the marketplace, really, pouring your heart out and your soul into everything that you do and really demonstrating your expertise and how much you care and everything that you know, and then doing the same thing with your clients on the delivery side and getting great feedback from clients, great client outcomes, getting great results. And then the failure lies right here. The failure lies right here. So what are some of the causes of that failure? It's the offer itself. Creating an irresistible, incredibly compelling offer is a skill that is worth mastering. And it's not something that happens by accident. It's not enough to teach everybody everything you know for free and hope that they'll pay you to hear it again. Like, it doesn't work like that. You have to create a compelling offer. You do have to be strategic in the things that you do decide to make available as free content to attract people into your world, and strategically hold back some elements that are only for your paying clients. So that way you're simultaneously threading the needle of delivering great value to people in your community, your subscribers, and also honoring the people who are in your paid programs. So the offer itself is one thing. The sales process itself is another. Having the sale or selling or sales conversation to move people from being right here, imagine there's a person that's right at the edge of the diving board, and getting them to jump in, that is a skill that is worth investing in mastering. There's a process that you want to take people through. It's not enough, again, to just show people what you know and do the same thing over here. You have to take people through a journey of discovery where they understand and identify the pain that they're in right now, understand why they want to make a change in their life, get to the root cause of that. It's just like the skills that a doctor or any a practitioner needs to learn when it comes to diagnosing the underlying root cause pain and challenge that someone is facing in order to prescribe the best next step. It really is diagnose and prescribe, but it's taking people through a journey that is not just logical, but is emotional as well. This enrollment piece, when I said this is where most people fail, it's exactly what you're describing. And it's more than we have bandwidth to cover in detail today, But as you look at kind of the buckets of time, of space to invest in for yourself, if you have this mastered and you have this mastered, this is where you want to put 100% of your attention. And frankly, for those of us who are in helping professions where you're helping someone, some of this can be a little bit uncomfortable because it is the asking for money. It is the charging what you're worth. It is the putting the compelling offer in front of people and being okay with people rejecting you and saying no and having those hard conversations. So this will stir up a lot of head trash. It will stir up a lot of, early trauma that we faced around things like money, around things like rejection, around the relationship that we have to selling. Whether we feel selling as a service at our core, it's easy for me to say those words, but do you really believe it? Or do we feel like selling is what vision we have when we think of a used car salesman and tricking people into making a decision against their will? At your core, what do you truly believe? That's one part of it, and there's more to that than we can talk about here today. But the reality is, if you're struggling with that piece, enrollment is where to spend your time and attention. That's the piece to master. Michelle, one more question, and then I want to take people through a exercise that we're going to go through, and then we'll wrap today. And I want to get a temperature read before we wrap at the very, very, very end to know who would like to do a part 2 of today's session and what we'd like to cover. One more quick question, rapid fire, Michelle, and then we'll go through those final steps.
Sure thing. This is going to be a hybrid question. Did you see what I did there? Because there's quite a few people asking, how do I begin? What might be that hybrid program that I begin with? And we've got several people asking a version of that question. Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, my vote to you is a couple things. Number one, make it fixed duration, whatever you do. Make it a month before you make it forever, right? Just try something for a month, because what you're going to learn in that month is going to be incredibly invaluable. So make it a fixed term, fixed duration program. Number two, keep the deliverables simple. Do the easiest to implement teaching, interaction, community, and support that you could possibly think of. Don't overcomplicate it. Resist the temptation to over deliver. Keep it simple out of the gate. You can always add more. It's more difficult to remove. And start with something. Put it out there in the world. You're not going to know if there's something that has interest until you actually put it out there in the world. Put it out there in the universe. Tell your people, tell your followers, let people know that you're doing this thing, and offer an incredible, irresistible offer for people who take early action, and reward your early action takers who join in early in your journey. All right. So exercise that I want to invite us to do. So we talked about a lot of stuff. We could talk for like 10 more hours. I get it. Like there's a lot. I'm sure you've got a lot of questions, a lot more things that we could talk about. And that's where I need your help. I need your help to know what else you would love to know. Where would you like me to go next? Like the next time we do this, we get together in the form of a town hall like this, if you want to join again. What would you like to see covered? What unanswered questions do you have? And we've created a simple little format for you to do that, which we're going to walk through here together. And it's a link that I'm going to ask our team to post inside of Zoom. And it's hybridexpert.com/feedback. So hybridexpert.com/feedback. I'm going to pull up that on my screen here in just a moment. We'll go to that link. That's hybridexpert.com/feedback. In fact, let me see if I can do this right here. I'll try to pull it up on the screen. hybridexpert.com/feedback. And I'd love to invite us to just take a moment to fill this in as little or as much detail as you would like. Put the link up on the screen. Okay, hybridexpert.com/feedback if you forget where we're at. First question, very simple. So when it comes to creating, launching, and selling a hybrid program, what's your single biggest question that you'd love for us to cover in more detail? Very simple, right? Just it could not be any more straightforward than that. What would you like to know next? Are your questions around the acquisition or attraction side, the enrollment side, the delivery side? Is it around how you make the transition? Maybe you're doing one-on-one right now and you want to transition to one-to-many. Maybe it's what you should charge, what your price point should be. Whatever questions that you might have. I'm not trying to put any words in your mouth. I'd love to know just what's on your mind right now. What would you authentically love for me to talk about and for us to teach and cover in maybe a future upcoming session like this? So I'm just going to put the word test. Next up, if you had to pick one, just to give us a little bit of context related to your response, which best describes what you do? Are you a coach, consultant, author, speaker, course creator, hybrid expert, maybe you're hybrid of all the above, or maybe there's something else. Maybe you've got a different term that you use. And I'd love for you to take a moment to do that. That's going to help us contextualize your answer, even though you did give us a little bit of insight at the beginning of today's session. Question number 3, which of these best describes how you're transforming your expertise into income right now? So again, just kind of what stage you're at in that journey, that S curve that we talked about of leverage. I'm doing one-to-one, one-to-many. Oh, and by the way, as a little way of saying thank you for taking the time to fill this out, everybody who fills this out right now live, I'll give you access to my notes. So just as a way to say thank you for taking the time to do this, a little extra incentive, I'll give you access to my notes. All the diagrams that I drew and everything that you can see, I'll put together in a nice, neat way so you can have it. So just as a little way to say thank you. So hybridexpert.com/feedback is the link if you haven't already started. And then third question, which best describes how you're transforming your expertise into income? And by the way, real answers, you've got to put your real answers in. No, just like click, 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 click. So do try to be as thorough as you can. So you're doing just one-on-one work only? Are you doing one-to-many work? Are you kind of in that midpoint combination, one-to-one, one-to-many? Or maybe you're doing neither right now. Maybe you are like a beginner and you haven't started on this path. How would you describe your business? If your business is your full-time income, let us know. If you're still working a day job or currently working a day job, that's cool. Give us a sense for your income level right now. Is really just kind of understand where you're at, because the reality is, and I've gone through this journey myself, what you need to focus on when you're at one stage of your income growth journey versus another is different. And it's not that one is better or worse, it's just different. So knowing where you're at is going to help me really steer the conversation to where you're at. So what this question asks is your net income from your business after your expenses. So, if you're making, $5,000 a month in net income from your expertise business, let us know if you're making $10,000 a month, again, after your main expenses, where you might be. Just going to put this, I'll do this one. And then last but not least, final question, based on where you are right now and where you want to be by the end of this year, 2023, what's your biggest challenge that's holding you back from achieving your goals? So what do you see as the biggest thing in your way right now in your business? And again, the more detailed and specific you can be, the better. And think about things that you think that I might be able to help you with, that we as a team might be able to help you with. If there's something out there that we can't help you with, you might have, you broke your ankle, for example. The deepest apologies. I'm not gonna be able to help you with a broken ankle. But as it relates to something that you think we might be able to help you with, even if it's not something that we talked about here today, maybe it's something totally different. What might that be? And then once you've filled that out, last but not least, if you'd be so kind to just let us know who you are and then your email so we can both follow up with you and make sure that we get you a copy of the notes. And then optionally, if you want to provide your phone number, you don't have to. We're not going to spam you or anything like that. But we will be reading through all these responses. And we every time we do this, we'll follow up with a few people directly over the phone just to have a conversation. So if you'd be open to doing that, again, not required, go ahead and do that now. Test information. And then once you've done that, should take you to a screen that looks a little something like this. All right. We're 2 minutes past the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of time. And I know that there is something that we have going on right now, but I do want to wrap things up. One final exercise inside the chat after you've done that is to just take a moment to let us know biggest takeaway from today's session. We'll read off a few takeaways. We also have to do this to wrap things up and finish up the session because it just nice way to tie things up with a bow for what we've talked about here today, and gives us a nice jumping off point the next time that we get together. So single biggest takeaway from today's session, hashtag takeaway. Let us know inside the Q&A, what was your biggest takeaway from today's session? It could be maybe one of the models. It could be an example that was shared. It could be an insight. It could be one of the questions that was answered. It could be maybe just reflection that you've had on your own business and your own journey. It could be something small. It could be something big. It could be a meta takeaway from just the way that we did the format of this session. What was your single biggest takeaway from today's session? Go ahead inside the Q&A. Let us know, hashtag takeaway, what that is. Michelle and I will read off a few of these, and then we will wrap things up for the day and be on our merry way. And by the way, if you want to do more of these kind of like town halls like this, if you'd like to do more of this, let us know. Let us know if this is something that you'd like to do more of, and we will see what we can do to make time in the calendar to make a space for this as well. Love it. All right, so Michelle, a couple takeaways that you'd love to share, and I'll share a few as well, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, a lot of people are really loving the idea of keeping it simple. That seems to be a big takeaway. So keep it
Mm.
simple, says Elizabeth. Don't make it too complicated. Pam is cracking me up here in the thread. She says, you're inside her mind, you've described her life, but she says her big takeaway is the fact she's not crazy, that this is all making so much sense.
Mm.
And Dan says his big takeaway was that amazing dynamic of the S curve.
Love it. It's great. Great. Juvenal, apologies for mispronouncing that. Juvenal says, you have liked some of the ideas that I was looking to implement. Thank you so much. Jean says, I'm so encouraged to know that I can relax and focus on a single element of my program and do it well. Keep it simple. Liz says, takeaway, over deliver is really over compensation. It's compensation. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. Keep it simple. 4 components of the biz. All 4 are needed. And I'm kind of missing some. So it's good to reflect on where those gaps might be. Halo says, I like the leverage model. I'm still wondering about the attraction and enrollment aspects of it. I would love more town halls on these aspects. And Robert's takeaway, to take just one ingredient from each of those boxes that we talked about as it relates to creating your very own hybrid program. All right. With that being said, that's all the time that we have here today. I'd love to spend more time together, but we are at our time. I appreciate you taking time to be here today. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully you've gotten something out of it today. I hope you've enjoyed it. You're walking away with some great, useful insights. I appreciate all the feedback that you've provided. Just give us another day or two. It's Friday. Team's going to be, wrapping. It might be early next week by the time we're able to get the notes over to you. So we haven't forgotten about you. I absolutely promise that. We will make sure that you get that. And hopefully I'll see you again soon the next time that we do one of these and on our next session together. Take care, talk soon, and have a great rest of your day, and have a great weekend as well. See you. Bye-bye.